You're present for you right now for 60 minutes. So we can see night and day here, right, Sharon?
That's right. It's afternoon here in Hawaii. So we're really excited to be here and share time with everyone. And so here we go.
Yes. And the topic today is, what is God? My favorite topic of all topics. It is a topic where we have so many opinions, right? People have so many opinions of what God is and what isn't. And well, we're going to be transforming that. I guess there's another word, right? There's a elevation of that word that we want to bring some awareness to, and say, if you have a problem with the name God, then look a little deeper on that, because it's just a word.
Right. It's the value or meaning that we give to words that really gives it the energy that what our mind is now feeding on. So, people might have an adversity to hospitals, for example. They won't go to a hospital because they're in fear. Even then, some people would say, that hospital saved me, it saved my life. So you get different versions of words. And that even with the word God, some people may have adversity to using that word, and other people are just fine with it. So, and it's actually the attachment that people have to places, words, thoughts, ideas, and those are all concepts. And when we use the word concept, even when I say, I am going to the store, are you really going to go to the store? It's a concept, because what if I turn around and go to the post office instead? So I said something, but I actually did something different.
Yes. Well, you were sort of starting that conversation of the I am, right? So I'm going to sort of bring that, I'm going to take that, and we're going to move it into that place of higher consciousness here. So when we talk about the I am, right? I am what? I am this person with this idea, with this concept, with this age, with where I live in Chicago. You are the person who lives in Hawaii, right? We're not going to be talking on that level most of the time today, if we can help it, because what we're doing is we're really bringing that sense of the I am now in this present moment, the I am. So the I am, I remember reading in scriptures, right? There's the Bible where God speaks to Moses, and God says to Moses, I am that I am. I am that I am. And that place of being is that presence of to be. Actually, another word for God in Hebrew is Yud-He Vav-He, which means to be. So I was very excited. I didn't, when I first read that chapter, it resonated in such a deep level. And I really didn't realize in that moment why, until I woke up. And how does that resonate with you, the I am?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's to really recognize and remember who we are, who we truly are. It's to awaken from this dream. And actually, I just came upon this today. It's a book called The Infinite Way by Joel Goldsmith. And I just want to read a little bit from that book. Okay. 1 second here. Our real existence is as spirit, and only in the degree that we perceive our real existence as spirit do we drop the false sense of life as material. Then we see that the structural life of man, animal, and plant is but the false sense of existence, that our concern for the so-called necessities of material living has been unnecessary, that although the beauties we behold all hint at God's creation, because everything outside of us is just a reminder of who we are, that the sick, aging, dying appearances are not at all a part of real life. So again, it's like looking to see what is real and what is truth and what is not truth, which is the personal I self. And when we arrive at this state of consciousness, we begin to catch glimpses of eternal spiritual existence, untouched by material conditions or mortal thoughts. As we turn from the world we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, we catch inspired visions which show forth the earth of God's creating. So we must remember, who we are, who we truly are. And everything that we perceive is actually a misconception or misperception so that we can awaken from the dream, so that we are experiencing this as a physical body, so that consciousness can discover itself, its true self.
Right. And that's beautifully said. And I was just listening to Eckhart Tolle talk about that's sort of the entrance point into knowing that is the place of the present moment. That's why it's called moment to moment. The present moment where we allow and accept whatever is now to happen. And acceptance is key because we tend to be very, conditioned in our life. And in the moment, we're looking for the next opportunity for another moment to be, because somehow we're dissatisfied with this now moment. So when we look for something other than this, right, we either think, well, maybe next moment's going to be even nicer. Maybe somebody's listening and saying, I think I'll tune off because I really don't understand this. So maybe I'll, resisting this moment instead of going, hey, I'm just going to allow this to be heard. Maybe there's something I can discover in these pointings and allow it, right? And then there's that feeling of spaciousness when you allow this moment to be just the way it is from an objective consciousness perspective, because everything is an object appearing within this moment. And so as we feel that opening, it allows us to be in that allowing of stillness, which is what we are as the entrance point, right?
Exactly right. And it's just knowing that. And people, sometimes they'll say they'll be in resistance to hearing what we're saying today. So we just ask people to come here with an open mind, open heart, and just let it be what it is. This morning, my husband and I, Stephen, we went to a Tai Chi class overlooking the ocean. And it was a beautiful class. And as we do our movements, I could feel, a little bit of pain over here. And then we start opening that up. And then we take a look and we scan our bodies again, and that pain is gone. Because what we're doing is we're opening up. We're creating a gap in the body, like opening up space. And so that's what we're doing here. We're just letting it be, letting things unfold so that you can hear something in a different way, that you could really understand what consciousness presence really truly is. Because when you're looking at the personal I self, that's the identity of the egoic mind. And everything from there is a projection. It's a belief. It's what we're perceiving. Even if people come down with the C word or anything, the flus, or, being sick, for example. And, knowing that that's a fragmentation of the mind, because everything is projected from the mind. And we see these as objects in the world, right? But the true awareness is being without the objects, is creating that freedom, that inspiration within, something that just gives rise to freedom, gives rise to presence, and letting that unfold in the moment, in the present moment, without agenda or objections or judgments, just letting it be. Would you agree?
Yes, just allowing it. And I'm going to actually work, now in this moment, we're just going to bring our awareness to this present moment. So in a way, you don't have to close your eyes. It's a mini meditation. And mini meditations are really beautiful to do. It could be just a minute or two of conscious breathing throughout the day that brings you into that moment moment. So this is an opportunity for everybody listening to sort of shut off your phones, unless you're hearing us on that instrument or the computer, and to totally be present. And we're talking about the stillness of the now. So if you're hearing anything, you can just let it pass, not attach yourself to it. If your thoughts are coming and going, you can see that as well as the witness of it. So there is that spaciousness that you are that beyond the mind chatter. And as we sort of bring our awareness into our body, that's a beautiful way also to enter the present moment and the stillness. And you can also feel the vibration of your hands. If that's another way, if you can feel the energy of your hands without moving it and without looking at them, just to know that they're there is a wonderful way to feel presence. So bring awareness to your hands. Bring awareness also, you could bring it to your feet, any part of your body. Just experience that now, that energy. And in that stillness, there is that quiet presence of I am, the I am. And as we are aware of that one place that God and us, and we resolve in that harmony as God now in that I am presence. There is no separation here. There's only one. Still, quiet, alive. There is such a aliveness to this moment that you can really truly feel and know. And there's this beautiful words from scriptures that say, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And I'm going to just chant that, and you'll feel as the words start to resonate, there is that knowing that all is perfect now. Be still, and know I am God. 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 We take a beautiful cleansing breath in, and we release all of it out through our mouth. We feel that sense of stillness and presence as we open our eyes to continue in this now moment in the presence of Sharon Berkowitz and Lynda Hope. And as we know, we're one with God. This is what it feels like to be one. Hope you're feeling that at this point.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. So beautiful. Thank you for that wonderful meditation.
Thank you.
It really does bring you to know oneness consciousness, just being present, not thinking about anything else, but just being who you are,
Yes.
which is just beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So how does the oneness presence work for when you find somehow you're distracted, let's talk practicality, right? We live in a world that is very conditioned and we're very patterned. And this identity that we have continues to live in duality, and we see contrast, and we seem to find a lot of obstacles that happen because, we are conditioned and patterned. So we'll see the condition is not something favorable, maybe, but most of the time, because we're very egoically patterned. So our ego mind is saying, we don't like that. We don't like that. We don't like that. And we forget that we're not our identity, that we're not our pattern behavior, that we now have to find that stillness, be that stillness. What do you recommend, Sharon, in your practice or in your way of knowing that?
Yes, absolutely. That's such a good question. And really appreciate that, because our topic today, what is God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, in the school of knocks, we'll call it, I'm just making that up.
Sure, hard knocks.
Everything is a distraction for us. Everything comes up for us to distract us from who we truly are. So let's say you're walking around and you stub your foot. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's slowing me down for just a moment. But then you're not really paying much attention to it. Like, what does that really mean? Do I need to slow down on something that's happening in my life? Do I need to take another look at something? And then let's say the next time you sprain your ankle and you're slowing down even more, but are you really listening? Are you really paying attention to that? And knocking on this door. So there could be a couple different doors that are that you're knocking on, but which one are you going to open? So let's say, there's the God door to say, I want to go through that and discover who I am and follow that path. Or no, I'm going to push myself because I know I want to go skiing. So you go skiing and you have a little injury in your foot. But what happens is you end up breaking your leg. Well, now guess what? Now you really have to sit back and take it easy, and people can equate that to staying home, like what we had with COVID, right? People being at home, and that's the true nature of self, is that natural discovery. It's that natural intuitiveness that we have. And we go through that. We're really understanding our true self and not making it so much about what's happening outside of us through objects, but because it's an inside job, right? It's going within. And when we go within, what we're discovering is our God self. We're discovering who we truly are. It's like, remember the game, and it's just, back when in the day, I don't know, I'm dating myself, but there's this game called Mystery Date, right? Where you open the door and you see who the mystery guy is. And, many times, people are looking for that perfect man, that perfect guy to come along. And when, that one isn't there, you look for the next one. And then you're still looking, and then you're like, oh my God, that still didn't work out. And meanwhile, this other door is still knocking, the one that you're knocking on, and realizing that you're knocking on the inside to discover who you are. So it's always bringing us back to know yourself as God, because we say, what is God? And that's discovering your natural intuitiveness. You're enjoying life, but from a peaceful way of believing or thinking, and not that there's any believing or thinking there, but that you're always bringing yourself to presence, into that presence moment, that which is timeless, that is outside of time. And when you do these meditations like you did, when you bring us to that stillness, that peacefulness, that's in the discovery of coming from a stable position. Whereas the identifier of the personal I self is wanting to identify with things, wanting things, desiring things. I want it. And then what happens is that because that desire is so strong, are you really going to get it? Are you going to be disappointed? Is it not going to work out? So that's why you're knocking from the inside, and just remembering that to awaken from the dream, that there is no separation, that you're not separate from God. The separation never occurred. Yes, we're in physical form, but that's to discover who we truly are and know that we are loved deeply. So it's a deeper knowing of who you are, not just who you're being as a mother, father, sister, brother, in your job. It's more than that. It's a deeper reason for your existence. And that's coming to know yourself as God. And not to say that, oh, I'm powerful and I could go change the world and I could fix something and I can change something, because it's not about that. It's just about discovering who you are and letting things unfold. And if you're enjoying life and doing things like that, that's still the discovery process.
Right. And so beautifully said. Thank you, Sharon. I know that several people are probably wondering, what do you really mean by as God or God? Some people will say, wow, you're awfully, high and mighty thinking you're God.
and not at all, because the opposite is so true. The opposite is just relaxing and knowing who you are in the present moment.
Right. But we're not talking about it from the ego. We're not talking about it from the ego's view that, we're going to claim that we're, we can, like you say, we can make miracles. In fact, we are part of the stream of the divine. We are one with the stream of the divine. And so when we realize that as our essential self, everything else is just, it doesn't really exist, really. It does in the 3D reality, but we are really talking above the 3D. We're talking about the oneness consciousness of intelligence, of the universal intelligence that we are. And the universal intelligence is really wisdom. It's not something you can, read in a book and memorize. It is something that's deep within yourself that you experience when you take a conscious breath and you feel the space around that breath, and you can track it going in deeply and then all the way out to where it stops, and you can sense the space around those breaths. And also when we're talking, when we take a breath, when we have stillness around those words, you can feel that stillness. It reminds me of, as an artist, it was pointed out, my teacher would point out that the white space around the form is just as important as the form. And as a musician, you know also that the notes wouldn't be as beautiful without the stillness and the silence around those notes, the space around it. So we also don't realize sometimes when we say, look around you in this beautiful environment and really be present in this place now. And I'll say, what do you not see here? And most people will say, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, can you see the space in this place? Can you look at your place and see space? Well, we normally don't even think about that, right?
Right. We're always looking at something outside of ourselves, looking at the objects, but also to remember that everything is an aspect of ourselves. Even our mind is an aspect of self. So everything is showing up to help us to learn that. I wanted to read something else here. Mm-hmm. And it was also in the book, The Infinite Way by Joel Goldsmith. In the Bible, we meet with the characters Moses, Isaiah, Jesus, and Paul. We should realize that Moses represents the leader state of consciousness or leadership. Isaiah presents to us prophecy. Jesus shows forth the Messiah consciousness or saving and healing grace. Paul carries the consciousness of the messenger, preacher, or teacher. Always, however, it is the particular state of consciousness expressing itself and appearing to us as men. So everything representing something to us to help us to realize our true nature, our true self as oneness, as God. And people may look at something outside themselves. They see a tree. They say, well, I can't be the tree if I'm over here. But we're not talking about what we see, what we smell, what we touch. We're talking about that higher consciousness level to know that we are of oneness.
Right. And you can sense that when you're still, when the mind is not keeping you limited. With the mind chatter, we have to talk about that. There's an addiction to thinking here in this country and in the world. The addiction.
Anything patterned is an addiction too.
Yeah.
Anything you could look at is being
That's
patterned.
right. Everything and the thoughts that create this delusion that what you are seeing is real, and the emotions that you are attached to. So when we attach ourselves to believe that we are the thought, a lot of people running around being very anxious these days and fear-based, and they're believing that thought, that fearful thought or anxious thought. You have to step away from the attachment to that thought and say, I am not that thought. That's just a thought arising. That's just coming and it's going. And when it goes, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm the consciousness that sees that. Just like I am the consciousness that feels the back pain you were talking about, can see that, but doesn't attach itself to that. And when you put space there that you are, everything just sort of comes and goes, and everything is what you say, equanimity. Everything is equal and there's no right or wrong to it. And that's the beauty of the moment, because whatever appears in front of you in this moment is divinely perfect. And to deny that would be really to deny God, to deny yourself, because you are one with that.
Right. And you are responsible, in a sense, if you look at it from a perspective of that, being 100% responsible, taking ownership for it. So Hope, let me ask you a question. So we said what is real and what is unreal. So what do you think, what is the real to you?
The real is that I am. And everything else is not real. Yeah.
And there's also a quote too that Ramanishi says, let's see, it's the I that removes the I, but remains the I.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. So remains the I. So which I are we referring to when we say that remains as the I? Because as we remove the personal identity self, what remains is unchanged. It's timeless. It's beginningless. It's endless. It's bliss. It's consciousness.
Yes.
Oneness.
Right.
And a really good exercise might be to say, when you're speaking, who is it that you're speaking from? Where are you speaking from?
Mm-hmm.
Are you speaking from the personal I that says, well, I don't know if I could do that today, or I don't think I'm capable of doing this, 20-mile bike ride, or, but even just a thought about it, it's like, okay, but who's the one saying that? So it's observing, not being attached to it, to say, enjoy life, have life's existence, but also knowing that your true I self is all that does not change. It's what you said, like knowing that everything is perfectly perfect in a sense, that when you say that, it's like, who's even saying that? Because we want to observe who's observing even saying it.
Well, the perfectly perfect is the perfection of itself. It's
I love it.
It's the knowing that it is perfect, because it couldn't be anything other than that. Yeah, in a way, a good marker in life would be, how is your life unfolding for you today? Are you finding ease in the day? And if it's easy, then you're probably very high in your big I, right? The universal intelligent I, consciousness I, which just allows the unfolding to happen. And it is like very synchronistic. Because there's no pushing against anything. It's just waiting for that to arise, and then you respond, and it's very flowing. But when you see a different reality come at you, and it's full of obstacles and problems and challenges, then you're probably being patterned. You're probably in your pattern behavior, and you're waiting for one more thing to go wrong. One more thing to go wrong, and another thing to come along, and somebody to tell you something that you don't want to hear, or somebody to step in front of you at the grocery store, or a car to cut you off, or any of that. You're just sort of waiting around for it because you're just sort of, patterned that way.
So
And
what happens when you are patterned that way? What do you
Right.
recommend for our listeners?
Well, to realize that, hey, there's something shining back at you, and you better wake up because you're patterned. I mean, that's just basically very simply said. If your life is not going well in that moment or during the day, you can really get very, very clear that something is out telling you something about yourself that you need to go in. It's not about blaming somebody else, right? We tend to want to blame the driver that went right in front of us. Or
Isn't it his fault or her fault?
exactly, it's their fault, right? Or you say, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I went the wrong way. Oh, I'm always doing that. Oh, oy vey
Well,
thing."
And it's about even forgiveness, even for yourself in that moment. And when we point the finger outside of ourselves, that's when we're not taking 100% responsibility. So it's like, well, how can I be of service in this moment? Or what is it that I need to know? So those are some questions that you might be able to ask yourself. And I want to read something here from this book. It's called Light Wisdom.
Oh, it looks so familiar, Sharon.
Awakening to Your True Self by Sharon Berkowitz.
Sharon Berkowitz, yes.
It's on Amazon. You can get your
On
copy.
Amazon. Get your
So-
copy.
So here's a question. What's the difference really between a state of being versus a state or experience of doing? So here's the answer. The state of being simply means whatever the feeling or experience is in that now moment has no opposite. Because what is, when we see things out there, it's the world of duality.
Right.
So an example for someone experiencing a state of being might have a now moment of the feeling of sad. However, in that now moment, sad contains the all. It has no opposite as it contains the everything and nothing in that moment. It is the state of being sad. Remember, everything is happening simultaneously without separation. So that now is containing the everything and nothing of the all. The nothing of sad in its completeness without fragmentation.
Yes. Well, sadness is an emotion, right? We feel that. We don't need to squash it or push away, right? We can just acknowledge it and say, I'm feeling this emotion. I'm feeling this emotion, and I can witness it and allow it and accept it. And then you'll feel it, and then it'll leave. It'll just leave without any resistance to it, just like everything else that we can become the witness of without attaching. So we don't say, "Oh, I'm so sad. I've always been a sad person," or "I've always been an anxious person or a fearful person." We sometimes do that to ourselves and claim it for our. It really just firm up our identity, makes us, like my mother would be. My father would say, "She's a shy person. She's always been very shy," and yet I didn't see my mother as a shy person. I didn't see her as a shy person. But when you start doing that to other people, especially to yourself, and you put them in this little box, "Oh, this person is, this way or that way." Well, first of all, it's not true. And second of all, it doesn't help to be put in a little box and identified in this box and say, "This is who you are." It's very, very limited. And we do that to ourselves all the time.
So what's really interesting about what you said, Hope, is that we've written the script. You wrote the script. And when you take ownership of that, really what you're saying about another person, she could be reflecting something back about herself. So if she were to take a look at that and say, oh, I'm saying that about another person, and if I'm the only one here because you're it, then what is it that you're truly saying? What is it that you can take a look at? And that's the identification of the egoic mind. The egoic mind wants to say, well, that person is this or that person is that, and stay in that story. Because, you know, everybody has stories and many stories on top of that. Mm-hmm. And people may not remember the same story that they told a year ago. You know, they might have a different version of it. So what are we saying? We have different versions of ourselves, right? Because even that's evolving, like we call it the evolution of humanity. It's like, are we evolving? Are we understanding the complexity of who we are, but knowing that it's all from the mind, the egoic mind, projecting forward. So, you know, and we say that this is the illusion. You know, the illusion is that the separation exists. The illusion is the mithya, the maya, where everything is just appearing. It's appearing as real. You know, they say there's fear in the world. Well, it's false evidence appearing real, because everything is appearing for us, not to us. Yes. And that's also a big one to get too. And remember, everything we're talking about here is because it's words. They're all concepts. But if we can understand that, that would bring us closer to knowing who we truly are.
Yes, beautifully said. And I want to say that a lot of people do believe that things are happening to them because it is the ego mind, right? It is, I am Lynda with this pattern in behavior. And if you disagree with me and I don't agree with you, then you are not my friend, or I'm not going to talk to you today or tomorrow or even a year from now because I don't agree. We get into that kind of opinionated mode, defensive mode, and then we get our buttons pushed. This is our human dynamic. So we get enough of that happening to us, or not really for, I mean, it could be for us. Yeah, it's for us to wake up. It's for us to say, there's something got to be better than this, because I don't like the way I feel when I am this way. There's got to be a relief, a freedom from this habituated identity that feels so restricted and shut down and limited. And that's the God self. When that shines through and you realize that's your knowing, that's your harmony, that's love, which you can use as another name for God, I guess you would say too, right? Another conceptual word. We're all love, and there's only one love. That's so fantastic. That is so ultimately the most amazing knowing that you could ever experience in this life as life.
So what are you experiencing? Love or fear, right? So if you're experiencing, love, for example, it's being more synchronistic. It's being more in alignment with who you truly are. It's also knowing that when you're in fear, take a look at that and see what that mistaken identity is about. See where it's a misperception and ask for a new perception about it. Because when you're in self-inquiring, when you're going within, because we said it's an inside job, and then when you're understanding that and having peace about it, no matter what is happening outside of you, because it's always your response, rather than a reaction. So if you can see that and know that there's a deeper fulfillment of who you are, there's a deeper resonance of peace. And if people can come from that heart-centeredness of true love and true self, then people would experience things differently in the world. They would see things differently.
Right. The lens of perception would be totally different. Yes.
Right. Which color Mithya glasses are we wearing today?
Right. That's right. What shape is our glasses? In the heart shape?
We have them here in Hawaii, so they must be everywhere.
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love is the only real thing. When you talk about what is real, love is real. And it's not the conditional love of a person that uses love sometimes as a control. I love you only if you do it this way and the way I like it, or blah, 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 whatever that condition is. And then there's that feeling like if I give my love, sometimes it's very hard to give love because you also feel vulnerable as a person to give love, right? So you feel, oh, if I'm going to give you love, I hope you live up to that, because I don't just give out love freely. But that's the funny part about us, as people. We just habituate those. We look at love as going, we're so fickle. One minute we love somebody, next minute they do something and we go, ugh, I don't love them anymore.
And that's the conditioned mind. That's the pattern, right?
That's
so
right.
that's not being, having unconditional love, because when you're in unconditional love, you're not going to say, well, I'm not going to love you unless you go to this school. You need to go to this college. Otherwise, I'm not going to approve of whatever you're doing. So that creates more separation, because that's what life is showing us. Life does show, and over again in the egoic mind, that, oh, well, look at that. That's separate than me, or her belief is separate than mine. And we can't be in harmony because you believe this and I believe that. And so it creates even more separation. But when we go beyond that, when we're beyond the mind, beyond the senses, then that's where we can really be in synchronistic harmony with true self, with absolute love consciousness.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Love that. Love that. Can you repeat that? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. On the replay.
Right. No, I say that because you were just so in the flow, and it was beyond thought. You were just so synced in right there, and that's why we don't have really any scripts here. I mean, unless we want to quote from a book or whatever, because we're allowing whatever words to flow through us in the moment in response to what we're saying, and how things are just informing our consciousness. As consciousness, we just there's really a place of no thought, and I'm not even grabbing for any words, because there's no words or thoughts that are appearing. So it's just, I don't know where it's coming from. No, I do know where it's coming from. No, it is. I'm just having fun right now. It is in the fun and in the joy and in the elevated spirit that we really are. The most profound and the most awake in the moment. And when we get bogged down, though, in our thoughts, we walk around going, like this. We can't, we're so much in our minds and our thoughts. We can't even, think straight. Right. That's when they say, I can't think straight, when we're in our fear and our anxiety, because we're being ambushed by our thoughts and our emotions.
But guess what's happening? What's happening is that you're going to be vibrating at that level.
That's
and
right.
Not vibrating at the level of love, which is 500 and above, we say. Dr. David Hawkins talks about those emotions and what they're vibrating at. And so we're vibrating, like you said, at that lower level emotions. And we're not creating that space to take ourselves out of that thought, like, oh, that terrible thing that's happening. But if we allow that space to happen, then become the observer of what's happening, to say, okay, that was painful, or, I didn't like hearing about my cousin or something, and it's like, okay, how could I be supportive in that? How can I be of service? And a lot of times things show up as temptations, right? We talk about that there's desires and temptations. It's like when Jesus the Christ was going through his journey, his path, there was a lot of temptations, but he kept going with the God self rather than going through the personal I self, to say, oh yes, I will go with that woman, or I'll marry that person and forget everything else and live like that. He's also talking about give up your, everything you have and come with me, follow me. But the idea in today's world, today's society, is to live life, have a great existence, have a great life existence, but knowing in the synchronicity that who you are is beyond all of the distractions that are out there, beyond anything that shows you something in time, that shows you in separation. You're beyond all of that. And just when you know that, that's the awakened self, because you already are, and you're just remembering your self-realization.
Right. And that's so key, Sharon, that you say that, because many people are not sure what we're really talking about because they haven't experienced their truth. They haven't experienced the stillness and the quiet that they are, and the expansiveness, that the knowing that that's who they are. And that's why meditation is important, because it helps you remember where that stillness is and how that you can enter into the stillness through the breath, through being quiet in this moment, allowing whatever is to be, and to maybe hold your hand on your heart, do a little mini breath, conscious breath, because most of the time we're breathing, but we're breathing unconsciously. If we had to be conscious to breathe, we'd be dead already. we wouldn't be, we'd last 2 minutes. Oh, I have to breathe. Whoops.
Yes,
No.
there's that greater truth that you're
That's
talking about. And this is the greater truth, that we are breathing, that we've animated this body. We've given it, there's a life to this body. And that's to discover the nature of our true self, to discover that we are loved, and discover that truth and freedom that is also the righteousness. And that is the true being of self.
Yeah. And these words, these are conceptual words that some will resonate with some will not. And that's why we do approach it in different ways. And there are different spiritual practices. I know for my Lynda's spiritual practice, it was very gradual. It started with obviously it started with being scared to death of dying. That's where it started when I was younger. I was so scared to die, and I had panic attacks. I don't know if anyone also has panic attacks. And the ego fears annihilation. It can't even fathom being destroyed. So the panic attack is the ego going, I can't be destroyed. I don't want to know. I have to live. I have to live. And then you don't realize where that is. And then you say, I realize it was just a thought. I'm going to die someday. I'm just going to die. What does that mean? What am I going to do? Am I going to go? What's going to happen? And that fear came so fast in, and it was amazing. I mean, to feel that as a young child, and every night for a long time, I'd get panic attacks. And then there was a thought that came in after that. It said, well, I may not know about what happens to me after I die, but I bet you I will figure that out before I die. I will figure this out. I have to know what's going to happen, because there is something within that needs to find that information out, right? So I stopped getting panic attacks. I sort of put it on the back burner, and I thought, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And I'd ask these big questions to my rabbi. Okay, who is God? Who's God, and where did I come from, and how did God get here? I mean, that's these big questions, right? And the rabbi would answer, and I would say, that didn't quite do it for me, but that's okay. So there is a seeker in some of us that really wants to go deeper, that wants to find something beyond this physical form and this conditioned pattern behavior, and knows itself to be truth, of something so divine and miraculous within. And when it's finally discovered and remembered, all fear disappears.
And the fear of death disappears.
That's right.
Even
Exactly.
death is a concept. As Muji would say, when his mentor teacher passed away, and they said, well, how do you feel that he's gone now? And he says, he never left.
That's right.
It's always present, always here.
Yes.
And that's the power of knowing this. It's the power of knowing the awareness, the divine awareness of who you are. And it's letting go of any misperceptions that you have about yourself, about other people, and knowing too that you can have attention without the attachment. In other words, you can still go ahead and mow the lawn. And I find that even gardening, is meditative. I find even taking a shower, and it's so peaceful. All of a sudden a message will come through and I'm like, okay, good. So these things, anything that relaxes you, that gives you some peace, is going to also help you to be in awareness, because that's who you are, the divine awareness, and trusting that.
And creativity comes from this place.
Mm.
Creativity flows from this place of stillness. And Einstein had his most aha moments while he was shaving, and he would think about something. The process of creativity is that you think of something, you want to create something, and you're brainstorming. It's called brainstorm, right? So you use your mind to come up with different scenarios, and then you put it to sleep. Then you say, oh, okay, I'll do something else. I'll distract myself. Like Einstein, I'll shave, I'll take a shower, right? Like you said. And all of a sudden, it originally starts in the thoughts of the conscious mind, goes to your subconscious mind, which is still working on it. And then all of a sudden it comes up like a light bulb moment. And there it is. There it is. And that's what's so exciting about creativity, in knowing that it needs the space. It needs the space to sort of incubate, to be born, to arise in that consciousness.
To marinate.
Right. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're an artist or a musician or whatever, wanting or coming up with new ideas in a company, wanting to brainstorm, you can't be getting to the solution from the place of the problem, right? You have to detach yourself from the problem, and you have to look at being still, being quiet, calming yourself into a place of just being in the moment, being right here now, and allowing, and then seeing what unfolds. And you'll be so surprised. You'll say, how did I come up with that? That was amazing.
And that's the sense of oneness. That's the sense of being in that oneness consciousness, that knowing that we all are one, that there is no separation. We never separated from source. And then when we're in that divine awareness, that consciousness, that true absolute, then like you said, that's where things just flow. It's like that creativeness. We just say being in synchronistic alignment. And so it's like the flower unfolding, right? Just being in that unfolding, and the essence is the flower doesn't have to try to have a fragrance. It's just automatic. It's just like that fragrance of who we are is that love. And that love is just emanating, just ready for each person to awaken to this.
Yes, thank you. And then, so we have 5 minutes left. So we're going to go back to a little bit more talk about God and what is God in religion. Let's talk about faith and religion and belief structures, because I think when we are habituated that way, we follow a certain belief system, we follow a certain religion, and some of it points our way into the divine, into that still place of one. But most of the time, you won't find that in your religious institution. And then again, you'll have that spark of understanding that when you are in prayer and when you go deep into prayer, and as a cantor and a chaplain, I understand how that as Lynda, in those roles, would serve a congregation or serve a patient in the hospital and pray, there is that connectiveness with God, with the, if you want to call source, universe, in that place of presence. And that is really when you go into a place of worship or anywhere, even in your own home, and you pray over a meal, there is that stillness that is divine and is all that is love and peace and goodness and joy. You feel that sense of calm and really strong intention of bringing that prayer of thanks, gratitude, appreciation, and that resonates from a real deep place, and there's no denying that place. So anytime you pray, you're in that stillness, you're in that knowing that you are as God.
Right. I agree with that. When you pray over your food, you're raising the vibration, the energy vibration of your food. So when you're digesting or putting that food into your body, then it also carries a higher vibration resonating with you. It's like if you go to a restaurant and the chef in the kitchen is like angry or really upset and he's making your food, you don't want to eat that food. But if the chef is happy and making wonderful food and this beautiful presentation and you receive the food, you're like, oh, wow, that does look so good and so yummy. You're going to enjoy that. And it's also going to be a higher level energy vibration for yourself. But I also want to say one more thing too, that spirituality is not a religion. Spirituality is of itself the oneness consciousness. It's the true nature of who we are. So we can have all these multitudes of religions, and they're all pointing to one thing, but knowing that the spirituality of what we're discovering, and this is internal discovery for each person on their own journey, and they awaken in their own time, because some people say, I can't anchor that in, or I'm not ready for that. And it's because of where their consciousness level is. It's where it's resonating with them. And that's why all these practices to lift up and be supportive and, like you said, be of service as a cantor, helping people to liberate themselves from whatever fear or emotional havoc that they're going through. But just keeping it with that remembrance and always creating that space. And then that allows for the divine presence to come through.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's such a great pleasure to have you on the show with me, Sharon. And for all those listening in, Jean, Angela, thank you. And Larry, and to those on Facebook and YouTube, and those listening, you can also go to my site, amomenttomoment.podbean.com, and see all of the reruns and hear us again, because as you continue to hear it and to feel a deeper sense of connection, of knowing that your truth, this will be something that will be remembered most of the day. You start remembering a little glimpse of it one day at a time, and all of a sudden expands into just the knowing that you are. And again, we welcome you on our show anytime that you want to come on our StreamYard link, and we will be posting on Facebook. So Sharon, thanks again. And
thank you so much, Lynda. Hope this was a beautiful experience, and I appreciate you and love you.
Love you. And everyone, have a blessed, glorious remembering.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.